Hi there, my name is Charlotte, and today's video for Stillwater's video series is called What to Expect from Teletherapy. That's a word that you've probably heard going around before the pandemic, or maybe just during it. I would like to talk today about what to expect from this setting and make sure that it's something that addresses concerns for those of you who are pondering whether or not to engage in teletherapy but aren't quite sure yet. The first thing I'd like you to consider are your feelings about having therapy not in a typical office setting. Just like as therapists, we often ask our patients to stop and think about what feelings they're having and acknowledge and sit with them. I'm going to ask you today to think about how you're feeling about teletherapy and how might this influence the decision you're going to make, and also why. I also think it's important to consider your feelings on therapy in general if you haven't been for a while, or if you're not sure if it's safe to return to the office so you'd like to try teletherapy instead. All feelings are valid and it's totally okay no matter how you're feeling. And hopefully by the end of this video, you're going to feel a bit better about trying something new with teletherapy. It's also important to talk about safety in terms of teletherapy. This can be talked about in many different ways, but the most important thing is that if in a typical office therapy setting, a teenager, for example, was having suicidal ideation, ahead of time, a plan would be established to check in with the guardian and say, if this were to happen, here's who we'll contact. You may potentially, as a guardian or parent, be in the next room waiting anyway. And then you would follow a protocol and call for help, and potentially the teenager would go to the ER for other psychiatric assistance. If this were to happen in a telehealth setting, obviously it's not in person and it's quite challenging. However, we have simplified that, as with anybody else doing teletherapy, by ahead of time creating a plan and making sure to talk about what would happen should the need arise. It's also important to consider safety of yourself and the therapist. If you are not comfortable yet going into the office, that's totally okay. Teletherapy is a really great way to still meet with your therapist or receive therapy with someone new. For people who are immunocompromised or high risk, it's a great alternative. It's also important to talk about accessibility and flexibility. It's so great with teletherapy because you can talk to your therapist from anywhere. As long as you have Wi-Fi or data, you can talk. It's wonderful. Even if you're on vacation, you, the client, can check in with your therapist if needed from anywhere. HIPAA compliance is also a key part of teletherapy. You may wonder, I don't have a place where I can talk freely without my roommate, children, or maybe someone else making noise or coming in and listening. It's time to get creative and make sure that it's private. I see all my clients from my home office, which I'm fortunate to have, and I close the door. And my husband knows not to come in, not to listen. You can even have a sound machine right by the door to prevent anyone from hearing anything. So it's completely confidential. It's also, some clients get creative. They go on a walk around the block. If weather's permitting, they may sit in a car. This is important to be safe. You don't want to have anybody who's not a licensed driver sitting in the car with keys, or if it gets too hot, it's important to use your best judgment. But there's many creative ways to find a nice, safe place to talk where you feel comfortable. It's also important to mention that we use HIPAA compliant platforms for teletherapy. There's VC, VSEE, or Doxy.me. Both are free for clients and clinicians, depending on which level you use, and they are completely HIPAA compliant so that you may engage with your therapist in a way that feels safe and secure, whether it's virtually or not. It's also important to make sure that teletherapy is a good fit for you. Every time we want our clients to have the best possible experience and serve them and meet their needs as best as possible. That's why if you need to advocate for yourself and ask questions, it's perfectly okay, in fact, encouraged. It's good to make sure also that you get along with your therapist and you feel comfortable. If not, it's better to be able to say, I'm not sure if this is working. And then you can find a fit that's even better for you, where you feel like you can actually trust your therapist and make changes in your life. You also want to set up your therapeutic environment in your home. We talked about this a little bit before, but as best as possible. Try to minimize distractions and make sure it's a great way to practice taking care of your needs beforehand. So if you need to go to the bathroom, if you need to eat a snack, that way you are kind of setting up for real life again, as if you were to get in the car and drive. It's kind of setting aside a time for you, where you can talk to somebody as well as make sure you're taking care of yourself before and after the appointments. Finally, one of the most important things is that you should feel comfortable and supported by your therapist. We talked about this before when mentioning if it's a good fit or not, but this is really, really key. Your time is valuable no matter what you do, and you want to make sure that if you find the right person in the right setting to trust and be able to grow and be supported by your therapist. Some of the things that you might be able to talk to are self-esteem, coping with anxious or depressive thoughts, acknowledging and responding to feelings, assertive communication, or dealing with relational issues. Again, support for what you need and want is key. And if teletherapy isn't your favorite setting, then that's perfectly okay. It's a wonderful option to try, though, and you won't know unless you try. Please leave us a comment or question down below. Thank you for watching our video and have a wonderful, wonderful day.